Good evening and welcome to the news at 6. I'm Preeti Shilshi, and in the next 30 minutes I'll be getting you the day's top developing stories, what's making news in India and across the world. And now let's get you the headlines first. India's biggest aviation expo Aero Show 2015 gets underway in Bengaluru. Prime Minister Modi extends a strong Make in India pitch to end India's status as top defence importer. Flip-flops on whether the Pakistani boat off Gujarat exploded or was blown up by the Coast Guard. Video emerges of Coast Guard DIG claiming he ordered destruction of the boat. He rejects the charge. Political crisis intensifies in Bihar ahead of the trust vote scheduled on Friday. Parties now bicker over who will be the leader of the opposition in assembly. And Islamic State unleashes more gruesome horror. 45 people burnt alive by the IS in Iraq sends shockwaves. The big story, the 10th Aero India show got underway in Bengaluru this morning, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi made a strong pitch to reduce India's massive dependence on defence imports. He also called on manufacturers to turn into strategic partners in the government's flagship Make in India program.
The country's biggest annual air show, the 5-day Aero India, kicks off in Bangalore. For the Prime Minister, a springboard for the ascent of defence manufacturing in India. Modi set targets to domestic manufacture of 70% of India's military hardware needs in the next 5 years, to remove the tag of being #1 importer of defence equipment, a strong push towards modernising India's defence forces.
We are focusing on developing India's defence industry with a sense of mission. This is why it is at the heart of our Make in India program. We are reforming our defence procurement policies and procedures. There will be a clear preference for equipment manufactured in India.
328 foreign defence manufacturers and 295 Indian counterparts are present at the event this year. Modi noted the rise in FDI in defence to 49% and FII to 24%, moves towards revamping research and development, and critical steps to draw in the private sector.
We are expanding the role of private sector even for major platforms. Our goal is to provide a level playing field for all. We speak in terms of national capacity, not public sector or private sector.
And here, ladies and gentlemen,
33 countries, including the US, France, UK and Russia, are taking part in this year's event. Some of the world's biggest aircraft and most lethal fighter jets will be showcased over the 5 days. India currently procures most of its defence hardware requirements from overseas. It's likely to spend $120 billion on arms acquisitions over the next 10 years. The government's ambitious Make in India program looks to change that. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television.
On to politics now, and the crisis in Bihar throws up new twists and turns every day. And today, various political parties differed not about who gets to be chief minister, but who will be the leader of opposition. Here's more.
आप माथा पर लगा दीजिए कि माथा फूट जाए, यही तो आप लोगों का है. अब 2 दिन बच गया है तो 20 तारीख को आप लोग देखेंगे ना, हम लोग एकदम विश्वास मत प्राप्त करेंगे.
With just 2 days to go for the floor test for the Bihar Chief Minister, Wednesday's bone of contention was not the Chief Minister's chair, but the leader of oppositions. The BJP, which is the main opposition, today walked out of an all-party meeting called by the Speaker to discuss the issue, alleging he was favouring the Janata Dal United. The JDU had written to Speaker Uday Narayan Chaudhary nearly a week ago asking that it be recognised as the main opposition. The party argues that it has nothing to do with the government of Jitin Ram Manjhi.
यानी गवर्नर साहब से कहा, राष्ट्रपति जी से कहा कि 130 आदमी हमारे पास मेजॉरिटी है, मैसिव मेजॉरिटी है, आप 48 घंटे में जीतनराम मांझी से विश्वास का मत हासिल करवा सकते हैं।
Meanwhile, the JDU, the BJP and RJD are hosting dinners for their legislators to keep them together and ensure that they do not go against the party wishes during Chief Minister Jitendra Manjhi's floor test on the 20th of February. With inputs from Shyam Sundar, Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, the war of words over government formation in Jammu and Kashmir also on, with the National Conference now claiming that the alleged statement of Mufti Muhammad Saeed asking the BJP to ally with the NC was nothing but a drama. This to get full term as Chief Minister of the state. The NC in a press release has said, and I quote, the PDP has finalized its alliance with the BJP and this became clear with their alliance in the Rajya Sabha polls. Now the two parties are also jointly contesting the elections to a legislative council seats that have fallen vacant, unquote. Meanwhile, the negotiations between the BJP and PDP continue over the ticklish issues, the 11-point program that is the basis of the discussions. Swine flu has claimed 13 more lives across the country since yesterday. At least 11 people died in Rajasthan, taking the toll to 176 in the state. In a fresh case, 2 patients died in Kashmir Valley. Himachal Pradesh and Chhattisgarh recorded 2 more casualties as well. The overall death toll this year is 637, while the number of people affected is over 9,300, much higher than previous years. Now to a controversy over what exactly happened to the Pakistani boat that exploded off the Porbandar coast on the night of 31st December last year. Coast Guard DIG PK Loshali made a U-turn today after a video surfaced of him saying that he was the one who ordered the suspect Pakistani boat to be blown up.
Let me introduce the
Both the Defence Ministry and the Coast Guard on Wednesday denied media reports that quoted a DIG as saying they destroyed a Pakistani terrorist boat on the night of 31st December last year off the Porbandar coast.
If any news channel shows that he has said that, I will inquire and find out. If someone tomorrow makes a statement which is incorrect, at the most you are making a case of a disciplinary proceeding against him. I told you so clear, we stand by what we said.
लोशाली साहब जो है वो बता रहे हैं कि उनको आउट ऑफ कॉन्टेस्ट कोट किया गया है, जो भी न्यूज़पेपर आप बात कर रहे हैं, उनके जो फैक्ट्स है वो गलत कोट किए गए हैं एंड फैक्चुअल पोजीशन वही है जो कोस्ट गार्ड बोलता रहा है.
But the Indian Express newspaper, which reported DIG Loshali's statements, uploaded the video in which he reportedly made the remarks. DIG Loshali later claimed at a press conference that he was misquoted.
I was not privy to whatever was happening. So I have been misquoted. The boat has actually set herself on fire and sunk.
Soon after the incident, both the Defence Ministry as well as Minister Manohar Parrikar said that crew set the boat on fire themselves when they were asked to surrender. The opposition, however, took the government to task, questioning Parrikar's earlier statement.
The Defence Minister has come out with a statement that it was the Pakistan terrorists and they blown the boat themselves. This statement was made by the Defence Minister. Subsequently, the different statements came, and now the whole thing looks very much confused.
Government must explain. Government must come clean and explain everything to the people and the country. Otherwise, people will start questioning: is it the sign of good governance, or is it the sign of bad governance?
Did the Coast Guard carry out a correct standard operating procedure? Yes. Were the rules of engagement correct? Yes. They did what they were supposed to do to save the sovereignty of the nation, to save the independence of the country.
According to the Defence Ministry, the Pakistani vessel set off from near Karachi on the eve of New Year and reportedly had 4 occupants. After the incident, there was speculation that the Pakistani boat was inside the Indian maritime boundary for drug trafficking or smuggling. But the government denied that theory. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And now let's get you more national updates in Nationwide. Dissent mounts in the Congress Party's West Bengal unit after a series of dissertations, rising BJP and losses in last week's by-polls in Bongao and Krishnanagar. Leaders have asked now for an organizational revamp of the party. Several leaders also lashed out at the central leadership for not helping the state unit in turning the Sharada scam into a political issue. Controversial Gujarat cop DG Vanzara walked out of Sabarmati jail today after he was granted bail in the 2004 Ishrat Jahan case. 8 police officers were charged sheeted in the case, of which 4 were granted bail. Earlier, Vanzara was granted bail in the Sohrabuddin Sheikh fake encounter killing case of 2005. BJP MLA from Uttar Pradesh, Suresh Rana, who is accused in the 2013 Muzaffarnagar riots, has been given Z category security by the centre, which means he is now among the country's most protected politicians. He was arrested after the riots and is currently out on bail. The legislator will have up to 32 commandos protecting him 24/7, besides a pilot car and an escort. A bid of 1.21 crore rupees has been placed on Prime Minister Narendra Modi's name-striped suit. The controversial suit is up for auction for 3 days, along with 454 other gifts that Modi has received as Prime Minister. All proceeds will go to the Clean Ganga project. Without a quick break here, but still to come ahead, External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj holds bilateral discussions with top leadership in Oman. We'll get you more in a bit.
हम हैं अभी भारत श्रीलंका सीमा पर।
यहाँ से भारत में आते हैं श्रीलंका के शरणार्थी। हम हैं मंडपम शरणार्थी शिविर के सामने। क्या पूरा होगा उनके श्रीलंका वापस लौटने का सपना? देखिए हमारी स्पेशल रिपोर्ट लौटने की आस, आज रात 10:30 बजे सिर्फ राज्यसभा टीवी पर।
Welcome back. Let's get you some more news now. External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj, on a first official visit to Oman, met the top leadership in Muscat today. Swaraj called on Oman's Deputy Prime Minister Saeed Fahad bin Mahmoud Al Saeed and said detailed bilateral talks with her counterpart Yusuf bin Alawi bin Abdullah. Both expressed eagerness for greater cooperation on trade and cultural issues. Modi's possible visit to Oman later this year was also taken up. Swaraj reached out to the expatriate Indian community in Oman as well, saying that their role in lifting Oman's economy could not be ignored, besides the huge remittances that they sent back home.
By providing highly skilled service at a competitive cost, our community's role has become indispensable for the Omani economy. Your sustained remittances over the years have contributed to our foreign exchange reserves and are a valuable livelihood source for millions of dependents in India.
India has vital stakes in the security and stability of the Gulf region, which hosts around 7 million Indians. There are over 7 lakh Indians working in Oman in various sectors, forming the largest expatriate group in Oman. They repatriate around $3 billion annually. On to the top international story, and members of the Islamic State managed to shock the world again with yet another grisly mass killing, this time burning 45 people to death in Iraq. This comes just 2 days after the IS released the beheading video of 21 Egyptian Christians.
More gruesome horror by the Islamic State. 45 people burned to death in western Iraqi town of al-Baghdadi just 2 days after 21 Christians in Egypt were beheaded. Iraq pleaded for help from the international community, telling the UN Security Council that such incidents must be considered crimes of genocide. Egypt also urged international action against the IS.
Almost daily terrorist attacks continue to deliberately target all Iraqis, most notably from the Shia community as well as ethnic and religious minorities across the country. The continued reports of massive human rights violations and abuses being committed by ISIL against civilians are gruesome. ISIL has made a point of not hesitating to openly publicize their crimes committed against men, women and children.
Iraqi officials said the motive behind the killings is unclear. Those killed are believed to be the members of security forces. Officials also said houses of the families of security personnel and local officials are also under attack now.
An exclusively military solution to the problem of ISIL is impossible. Indeed, it would be counterproductive. Any effort to achieve unity through reconciliation must be based on the Constitution, must be based on the principles of inclusivity, and with the full participation of political, religious and community leaders from across Iraq.
The killings come days after Iraqi security forces retook the center of al-Baghdadi district in the east of city of Ramadi, which is also the capital of western Al-Anbar province. Before its fall, al-Baghdadi has been besieged by the IS for several months. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
So how big is this threat of the IS across the world? Kamar Ragha, who is the international affairs expert and senior journalist, is joining us in studio today. Good evening, Kamar. Give us a sense really of how the US and even other world powers are actually looking at the IS at this point of time, considering the amount of videos, and gruesome ones at that, being released almost every 2-3 days.
You see, it's a very big group and they have support of a lot of sometimes, different countries, they are using one against the other, And besides that, is a large area they are controlling from where they are raising taxes. They have control over the oil resources. They have got hold of a big arms depot in Mosul and other parts. Plus, they have also looted Iraq Central Bank in Mosul, almost $500 million in one day. So it's a very rich group, which is spread from Iraq to Syria, and they have recruited a lot of people. They have forced soldiers also, slaved, they are using slaves also. So all sorts of activities they are indulging in, Second thing, they are also involved in beastly act like burning of the people or, beheading of the people. These are the things, it should not only condemn, I think there is a need to declare all-out war against them. Because containment is not possible, Up till now, Americans and other international forces are involved in containing. So that's not possible to me. It looks difficult, So all out, these are the groups, you can't reform them. It's we have seen them in Afghanistan also, the Al-Qaeda, they have gone even before. Second thing, the Iraq, they have now been joined by the by the ex army officer of the Saddam forces, these are the people, highly trained. They were trained by Saddam Hussein and they use all sorts of methods against Iran and against their own people, They use mustard gas, they use chemical weapons, and they have also used these techniques in Kuwait when Saddam forces have occupied Kuwait. So they are the people, which are indulging all sorts of activities, killing people, kidnapping people, selling them in a slave market, kidnapping of women have become very, they have no tolerance for the minority community, of any, belonging to any religion or race, So it's very difficult, There is a need, I think unity should be maintained. Arab government pressure should be built up on the Arab governments, not to indulge or deal with them, and international force should be mobilized, It is there, international force is there, but only bombing will not help solve the problem. Otherwise, it will continue for a very long period of time. Iraqi forces are not very well trained.
You're talking about this pressure, Kamar. You're talking about the pressure from the international agencies, also onto the Arab countries. Where do we see the US really playing out on this front? We do know that President Obama is trying to, intensify his, intensify the search really for IS operators, IS members. That, of course, that word is still pending there in the US. However, do we see the US intensifying, troops in countries like, let's say, Syria or perhaps Libya or perhaps back into Iraq again?
See, American-led coalition is involved in aerial bombing, they are hitting targets, but to me it looks it's not sufficient, they have to go beyond that. And the problem with the Americans, there is no appetite for sending troops on the ground. They said no boots on the ground, Americans are not prepared. War fatigue is there because they were involved more than 10-15 years, in different wars, Iraq and Afghanistan. So American army is not prepared. I think, the regional solution should be formed. The regional countries, they have also joined the international coalition, but they should contribute more forces. Second thing, the training of Iraqi forces, large number of Iraqi forces should be trained to deal with the sophisticated weapons, of this type nature. Up till now, what American did with the Iraqi, they trained like a police force,
Yes.
It was a good police force,
Yes.
involved in conducting raids or protecting roads or searching the militants. These are the, they were not even paramilitary forces,
Yeah.
because
The
they were not.
solution lies within.
Yeah,
the
they
solution lies within. It's up to the Arab countries really to figure
regional
out
forces,
how, yes.
and other countries should help, train the Iraqi forces, help them, give them, the sophisticated weapon and train them, I suppose.
All right, Kamaraga, thanks so much for joining us on this issue that we'll be keeping an eye on. Meanwhile, staying with more international news, fighting continues unabatedly in Ukraine despite a ceasefire agreement prompting the US to send out a warning to Russia. The UN Security Council voted unanimously approving the ceasefire deal, at the same time sending out strong signals to Russia that it will have to pay the price otherwise, hinting at increasing sanctions. International observers, in fact, monitoring the truce are still finding it difficult to enter the border towns. The ceasefire came into effect last Sunday, but it has been broadly observed only in some areas, but the Debaltseve and Luhansk are not. Reports suggest Ukrainian troops have been retreating from border areas after Russian President Vladimir Putin urged government troops to surrender. The Ukrainian government has, however, not confirmed this. Both warring sides are yet to pull back heavy weapons from the front line.
Violence has continued in recent days in some parts of eastern Ukraine. The members of the Security Council called on all parties to immediately cease hostilities and abide by commitments agreed in Minsk.
Now let's get you more updates from across the world in Global Buzz. Dozens of people have been killed in a series of suicide attacks believed to be carried out by the Boko Haram in Nigeria. 20 people died in explosions at a military checkpoint in the town of Biu, where 4 were killed at a restaurant near a military checkpoint in Potiskum. On Tuesday, the government released a video in which the leader, Abubakar Shekau, threatened to disrupt Nigeria's elections at any cost. A 3-day summit on countering violent extremism began in the US today. Representatives from across the world are attending the gathering following the shooting incidents in Denmark, France and Australia. US Vice President Joe Biden said that minority communities must feel that they are part of and have a stake in the common society. Syria has said that it is prepared to suspend its aerial bombardment of Aleppo for 6 weeks for a trial ceasefire. UN envoy to Syria said that the pledge offered a glimmer of hope, although it is unclear when that would take effect. Government forces have been engaged in an attempt to cut a crucial rebel supply route. Meanwhile, the route used by mountaineers to scale Mount Everest will be changed next month amid fears of an increased avalanche risk. The Nepal government is seeking to improve safety at the start of the climbing season. A deadly collapse had killed 16 climbers in 2014, the worst single loss of life in expedition history. And now back home and turning focus on the upcoming rail budget. Private investment is something to be the biggest priority for Rail Minister Suresh Prabhu when he presents his maiden budget on the 25th of February. The industry expects clearer indications on public-private partnership and FDI models. Here's more.
Rail Minister Suresh Prabhu's first rail budget comes in the backdrop of a falling global crude prices and expectations of a rail fare cut too. But for now, Prabhu's priorities will be getting the investment cycle going for the railways.
Honorable Suresh Prabhu has been handpicked for this purpose and he is very well experienced in this. But the task is quite awesome. I am a railway man and I have friends, so the indications I get, based on that, there is going to be a very strong pitch for private investment.
Soon after he took charge as the rail minister, Suresh Prabhu had released a framework document for participative models of rail connectivity and domestic and foreign direct investment. It lays down the railways' massive investment needs. Estimates say the railways require 14,000 crore rupees for suburban corridor projects, 63,180 crores for high-speed trains, 8,452 crores for freight lines, 222 crore rupees for freight lines and an estimated 800 crores for signalling systems. Watchers say these projects are likely to find focus in Prabhu's speech, and the Rail Minister could indicate a resource generation mechanism, some concrete remedies to shortcomings cited in the last year's budget.
There has been focus on sanctioning projects rather than completing them. In the last 30 years, as many as 676 projects were sanctioned worth rupees 1,57,883 crore. Of this, only 317 projects could be completed and 359 projects remain to be completed, which will now require as much as 1,82,000 crore.
The big challenge for Prabhu is roping the private sector that's not so keen to invest without being allowed to collect revenues.
Up till now, the Indian Railway policy is that we will not allow the private sector to come in operations, or we will not allow private sector to collect the revenue. Then it is better that the activities which private sector can manage better, like production of rolling stock and other industrial activity, that should be left to the private sector.
Allowing 100% FDI in areas such as construction, operation and maintenance of high-speed train projects, dedicated freight lines and other areas has been a big step forward. Even now though, no investors have come forward, Suresh Prabhu will be looking to correct that. Suresh Prabhu's made-in railway budget is likely to give clear indications on public-private partner model. But passengers are unlikely to get any rail fare cut in the upcoming rail budget. With camera person Ashwini, Rajkamal Rao, Rajya Sabha TV.
And that's it for this hour. Thanks for joining us.